So I had a call with an author this morning. Now, the ongoing consultations I give authors, that's nothing new. What this author told me partway through our conversation was that their book, their manuscript, was around 5,000 words. What happened in that moment was my advice changed. So the advice that I would have given the author, had they had a longer manuscript, changes completely when I know that what you have has a very low word count. So welcome, my name is Dave, and this video is for the author and writer who finds himself nearing the finish when their word count happens to be quite low. Here's the advice that I would give you if you were sitting with me here in my offices in Cape Town. So let's start off with an obvious question. What is the average word count? Now, I had a quick scan through what's considered the average page. The average amount of words on a page is anywhere between 250 or 300 words, depending on things like line spacing, font size, font type, and things like that. Now, a recent article from The Guardian suggests that the New York Times bestseller, the average length, is sitting at around 400 pages, which, depending on your word count, can be up to 120,000 words appearing in the average book. So where does that leave you, and what advice would I give to you if you were here with me with your shorter manuscript and you were looking to publish? So let's start at the beginning. The first thing I would ask you is, what is your goal for writing? Many of the conversations that I have with authors turn out that the author was getting something from the writing process, meaning it was a healing, it was a healthy process. And the point I'm getting at is that not every single book needs to be published. You might find that the writing of the book and that the fomenting and fermentation of ideas is the goal. It's the victory. You've done it. Does that book have to be published? Does it need to be edited? Does it need to appear on the shelves for sale? Maybe not. So very important, the first question I'm going to have for you is, what is your goal for this book? Now, if your goal was potentially met during the writing of the book, you felt the healing process, you've started the healing process, great, nothing more is needed. I'll give you a cup of coffee, and that's where our conversation can maybe end. Now, if there was any sort of commercial goal, if you wanted to make money from the sale of this book, or if you wanted to impact people, which results in similar activities, you need the book to be available for sale in order to impact people. Okay, now the conversation is going to change a little bit, because obviously if you want your book to appear in front of people and you want to either earn money or you want the people to potentially recommend the book to other people, it's going to mean that you need to treat the book in a certain way. You're going to want editing of your words, for example. So very important, once I know what your goal for writing is, and once I know that your goal is beyond just the writing process, and you actually want to maybe earn some money, or you want to impact as many people as you can, or some sort of mixture potentially of those two goals, what next? So books contain a message, maybe a story, and not every package looks the same. So many people knock on my door thinking that it has to be a physical book because that's the link they've got. That's the only thing they know. But there are many different ways to package your story. You might have your book packaged as a digital ebook form. You might have it as a soft cover or a paperback. For thicker books, you might want a hard cover. Or for those people who prefer listening to their books while doing dishes like me, maybe you want an audiobook option. Maybe for those authors on a very tight budget, you simply want to record yourself speaking to the camera, very much like this video, and then put it to YouTube. So as you would guess, there are a wide range of packages to choose for your book, from ebook, paperback, hardcover, the audiobook, or potentially just recording even. Every one of those choices will carry a cost. So does your book need to be in more than one format? Most of the time, I prefer, if budget was not an option, a mix of both ebook and a physical book. However, you're in front of me with a very short book. Remember, that's how the story started. Now, for a very short book, a book perhaps below 10,000 words or so, a digital book becomes more valuable. And a physical book, like a paperback, becomes a little harder because to have a physical paperback book where your word count is 5,000 or 6,000 words, you will have a very thin book. So one of the important ingredients when you are choosing your book format preference is knowing that, well, if I have a very short book, it's going to mean that the paperback book is a very thin read. Maybe there's no spine, text on the spine. Maybe the book feels very flimsy. So perhaps you stick then to an ebook choice. Perhaps you are able to increase the word count safely to get it to a thicker book that then justifies the paperback packaging. So this brings me to something else. This is something that I'm scared of. This is something that when I'm sitting with someone who has a low word count, this is what scares me. And what scares me is that this person writes to chase a word count. So when someone says to me, how long should my book be? The worst thing that can happen is that you try padding and adding fluff to your story in order to reach 40,000 words or 50,000 words because that's the number you Googled or that's the number you were told your book needs to be. Now, your story is your story. No one knows how long you might need to get the story out. The conversation I had this morning essentially went, well, have you finished writing? If you're looking to impact people, is your 5,000 words that you have, is that enough to convey and to impact the reader as much as you want to? Only you know the answer to that. So again, I'm going to warn you, do not write to chase purely word count. Write as much as you need to or as little as you need to in order to finish the story beginning, middle, and end, whether this is fiction or whether this is nonfiction. The same rule applies. Never write simply to chase a word count. What would happen if you did was likely that the editing process that should be one of the first steps you take will see the editor removing a lot of that fluff from the story. Because when you're writing to reach a word count, chances are it will show and readers will see. And a good editor should help you generally reduce the word count by removing that sort of fluff. Something else that I would want to talk with you about, and this is often, this is not a nice part of the conversation because it revolves around cost. I love what I do, but I also charge for what I do when it comes to the book publishing process. Now, if your book was 5,000 words or your book was 50,000 words, certain parts of the publishing process will remain the same cost. For example, if I'm designing a cover for your book, that cost remains largely the same, whether your book is tiny or whether your book is huge. A cover cost from the designer will stay the same cost. There are other steps like creating the different book, the ebook edition, for example. That cost generally stays fairly similar from our side. So whether your book is 5,000 words, whether your book's 50,000 words, many of the costs you will see will remain the same, irrespective of your low word count. One of the only steps I can confidently say should be costing a fair amount less would be editing, because generally editing is charged per word. So again, just because your book is short, it doesn't mean that the cost you might see to produce a professional paperback is going to be proportionately short as well. So what options do you have? We've sat together now. Maybe I've made you a little sad speaking about the costs. Maybe we've decided that your goal is to impact readers. And so you really do want to see this book on the shelves and available for people. So obviously, local bookstores are an option now because you might be self-publishing. I'm guessing if you're watching this video, you probably want to self-publish. What that means is it's a little harder to get your book into physical bookstores, especially if it's going to stay that short read. A better option, and especially an option to save money, is going to be, well, why not put your book in a blog form online? So starting a blog is easier than it's ever been. Certain platforms will let you blog for free. Otherwise, if you're slightly tech savvy, you could start a blog for little cost, probably a yearly cost, if anything, a small yearly cost. Now, you could blog your book chapter by chapter. This carries a very little cost, potentially you still achieve the goal of being able to impact people. What it means is, unfortunately, you will lose out on foot traffic from stores like Amazon, and your job now becomes to generate traffic and to generate excitement and exposure for your blog. So blogging is a very low cost, potentially high visibility if you put effort into the marketing process of your writing. Also, a low-cost option would be, as I mentioned, to record yourself just like this and put the video to YouTube, for example, chapter by chapter or story by story. Again, I'm skipping through this a little faster to keep this video shorter, but just know that any one of these choices will have a whole bunch of marketing work needed before people start finding what you've done. Now, if you were looking to publish in something a little bit more formal and your word count was low, the two platforms that I recommend you give a Google are Wattpad and Radish. Both of these platforms are known to be friendly to authors and writers who have shorter reads, potentially shorter fiction or serialized reads, which are basically stories that come out on a fairly regular basis. So Wattpad and Radish might be what you need to publish your short story, or at least a chapter of your story, and start building that audience. Amazon KDP is a great home. This could be for a shorter ebook edition if you decide you want to stick with just the ebook, or potentially the paperback. If you are able to get the word count a little higher, potentially then you can publish your ebook and your paperback through Amazon KDP. I've got articles on how to do that. I will link it to this video just in case that helps you as well. One of the most important things, once you've decided on where this platform, where you will choose to publish through, which platform, whether it's a blog, whether it's using chapter by chapter on Wattpad, or whether it's publishing the ebook through Amazon KDP, is what you're going to charge for this short read. The only advice I have here is essentially don't charge too much. So if your book is below, or if you know it's a short read, firstly, let people know when you are selling this book is a shorter read. So for example, don't publish your 5,000 word book with the title of a comprehensive book on so-and-so, because 5,000 words is not comprehensive. So when you do publish, make sure it is visible that this will be a shorter read. You can mention that in the book title perhaps, or perhaps in the book description itself. And most importantly, when it comes to the pricing of the book, you want to also charge a very competitive or lower cost for this book, because there's no way someone would want to charge a full price or be charged the full price for this book, only to find out that it takes them maybe an hour to finish. So make sure that you let the readers know this is a shorter read, because what you're looking to avoid is an unhappy review from a reader who opens your book only to realize they're going to finish this before their cup of coffee gets cold. And secondly, charge accordingly. If you're writing and releasing short bits of short stories, for example, or short reads, make sure you do not levy a high cost for them. Again, that's a surefire way to get negative reviews, negative comments, and start off your publishing career with less than a bang. So I hope this helped you. I know and I understand that not everyone has a 50,000 word book inside them, and that's okay. You don't have to worry about that. All I'm saying, and all I want you to think about, is firstly the goal of why you are writing and why you want to publish. Once your goal is clear and you want to proceed with publishing, so perhaps your goal is impact or it's profits, then decide what platform you think best suits your book, whether it's for free as a blog or as a YouTube video chapter by chapter, or whether it's a professional publishing platform such as Amazon KDP. Next, I would want you to make sure that if you have a commercial reason for putting this book out there, i.e. you want to make money, that you put your book through some sort of professional book process. I want your book and your words to be edited. I want your cover design to be professional, as your layout should be as well. Finally, well done. You got to the end of the video. And don't forget, when you do put the book out there, just to make sure that the expectations are set with the reader. I really did enjoy recording this. I hope it helps. And if it did, obviously, I would love to know. It helps me a lot to know that my videos are being watched and that maybe something from this video helped. Thanks. I'll see you again on the next video.